Okay, hi guys. All right, as agreed, we're going to talk about stream ecology today. This is a relatively short talk we're going to have, but we just wanted to go through a couple of the concepts of stream ecology, and I would strongly suggest that before you start watching this, that you just read through Van Note. It won't take, but on the river continuum concept, it's not going to take more than about 20 or 30 minutes. So, but I really suggest you want to do that. But just going through streams, again, we often talk about the about terminology, and we talk about lotic and lentic systems. Lotic means systems that flow. Lentic systems are usually systems of lakes that pertain to lakes. So those are two things. When we're talking about flow, in terms of rivers, you've basically got the bed that contains the river, the flow. You've got width, you've got depth, you've got velocity, and then of course the fourth dimension is time. So length, width, height, length, width, height, velocity, and time. So, or actually length, width, height, and time. So those are the things that you want to think about in terms of your lotic systems. And one of the first concepts we want to talk about in terms of stream size is this concept of stream order. Stream order is just this whole idea of, you have orders from about 1 through to 13 or 14. You might find the Congo River and the Amazon River being sort of that size, whereas a stream order of 1, it's just a teeny tiny stream, and it might be ephemeral. You might not have it in the summer. But essentially, when we look on USGS maps, and we look at the smallest stream at the end of or very close to the watershed boundary, those are usually first order streams. And it pretty much goes like that. It's just a method of classifying streams so that we have an idea of what those look like. So if you have a watershed boundary like this, on the one side, water would flow that way, away, and then on the inside of this watershed boundary you'd find water flowing into the watershed. So your first order stream is going to be these teeny tiny little streams towards the watershed boundary, and you have a bunch of little streams that come along, and your first order streams are those ones that don't have any water flowing into them, under normal circumstances where there's no runoff. So these guys are going to be called first order streams, okay? So that's a first order, that's a first order, that's a first order, that's a first order. When two first order streams come together, they actually form what we call a second order stream. When two second order streams come together, they form a third order stream, and then we can repeat the process over here. We've got two first order streams, two first order streams. It's a very symmetrical watershed over here. And when these two third order streams come together, they make a fourth order stream. Okay, so it's a very simple concept. Now, what happens if we've got another third order stream here that joins the fourth order stream? Does it become a fifth order stream, or what does it do? In fact, in this case, if the higher order stream is joined by a stream that's of a lower order, that stream will be continue on as that higher order stream. So in this case, that fourth order stream will continue as a fourth order stream, whether it's above or below the confluence with the third order stream. So if you have, say, a second order stream over here, the same would apply. This would remain a fourth order stream. And then depending on the size of the watershed, in this case, you know, the largest stream you have is fourth order, and it exits at that watershed drain point. Okay, so hopefully that makes sense. Let's talk a little bit about there's a slide that talks about spatial scales. You can have a look at that. But let's go on and talk a little bit about riffles, pools, and cascades. In any watershed or any healthy river, you're never going to find a river that kind of goes along. Made myself some tea. I had to have a little bit. You're never going to find a river that's just completely uniform. Go, and then the water, and the height over here is precisely the same as the height here. You have a system where you have the river meanders, first of all, and you have a system of riffles and pools. So basically what you might find is this kind of thing, and then the river does this. And with the result is that you have riffles in this area and here, and pools over here. So those are riffles and those are pools. And if you think like a fish, you've got to think like a fish in this sense. You know, where's the habitat going to be? Well, the habitat for fish is more than likely going to be in these pools over here. Why? Okay, first of all, what do we find? The depth over here in the pools is going to be deeper compared to here. It's going to be pretty shallow. Well, it's going to be deeper. So is the current going to be higher here or here? Obviously, the current's going to be higher, lower in the pools. So the fish is not going to have to expend as much energy going through here. But the riffles are also incredibly important because this is where water starts coming close to the surface and it starts aerating. And when it starts aerating, that's when you find that you've got, well, obviously you've got stuff that fish can breathe in. Often in each one of these pools, it's not just uniform. There's a lot of vertical diversity. You're going to find rocks and cobbles and pebbles and things like that at the bottom of the stream bed. Usually, if you've got a lot of sediment, that's probably not a great idea. The other thing that we talk about is riffles and pools tend to alternate, and sometimes in a big flood, they might move in terms of their locations of it. So, you know, and then often you might find something like a cascade, and you know, water goes down there. So a great place for re-aeration and energy and things like that. So it's important to understand that streams are pretty diverse in their construction. Okay, so what else do we have over here? Let's talk about sinuosity. Well, the term sinuosity just really is about how tortuous this route is that the stream takes. Usually in low-lying areas and flat plains, you get this kind of thing, and I'm sure when you were doing geography in high school, talked about oxbow lakes, things like that, where this sinuosity was fairly high. Obviously, if you're in high-lying areas, you might have a fairly sinuous stream because you've got, you know, hills and mountains and things like, or physical impediments in the way, but typically that sinuosity, you're going to find it more in low-lying areas, whereas in mountainous areas, it's going to be pretty much, your streams are going to be a little bit straighter and less meandering. One of the things in terms of the big meanders, there it is. It talks about there's low gradient. So you've got the big meanders, and these meanders you're going to find actually down on the coastal plain. Where it's flat, you're going to find the big meanders, low gradient, and then of course your substrate is going to be fairly fine. And that's because a lot of your substrate is washed down from erosion up country and tends to settle in there. So if you go down to places like the Black River or anywhere down in Charleston, those areas, you're going to see a lot of that much finer material. And of course pluff mud is the classic example because that's really, really fine material. And now it's come into contact with the sea and the ocean. So when you're looking at small meanders, you're looking at very typically high gradients, as we've discussed. Not much in the way of sinuosity unless you've got some kind of big impediment, physical impediment in the way. And then of course, the size of your substrate is going to be things like pebbles, rocks, boulders, that kind of stuff, and you can see that in this picture. All right, what else? Okay, we talked a little bit about oxbow lakes. If you go onto Google Earth or Google Maps and you go down to to the Watery River as it crosses Highway 601 almost due east from us, and you have a look, you'll see a lot of those examples. So basically you've got that river bend. When you have the oxbow lakes, basically you've got these large meanders, and eventually the water finds a shorter route, lower energy, and over time sand is deposited on the outside of these bends, and so these lakes then, these oxbow lakes, then get separated. You often see those in sloughs as well in any kind of low-lying riverine system. If you go up onto the, I think it's the Catawba River, or it's the Broad River near Cherokee, you'll actually see a braided channel system, and that's when you have a high flow and coarse material. Often you'll find this this braided channel system going on. So those are just some of the things about river structure. When we talk about ecosystems and the river continuum concept that Van Noot talks about, one of the things that really comes into this whole idea of the river continuum concept is energy. And so before we sort of carry on talking about river continuum concept, we need to have a look at a couple of things in terms of energy over here. Here's your river, and you've got some trees. I don't have green, but pretend this is a green tree here. And you've got plants inside the river. And basically, there are a number of energy sources that you can look at. When you have algae and plants inside the river, they are getting their energy from the sun, and they are at the bottom of the food chain for all sorts of invertebrates, all sorts of microbes, that kind of thing, that might feed on these things. Okay, so when energy is produced from within the stream because of photosynthesis, we call that autochthonous. Okay, autochthonous energy, that's AUTO, auto means self, okay, so autochthonous. The other forms of energy that fall into streams is things like tree limbs, leaves, bark, seeds, that kind of thing. That'll fall in and also become a form of energy, and that energy is called allochthonous. So autochthonous and allochthonous. Now, I don't know why the scientists chose such big words, but we're going to have to just think about those words as we go along. Now, basically what happens is that all of this organic matter, either it's autochthonous or allochthonous, ends up in the streams. Some of it is dissolved, as in dissolved organic matter, and some of it is particulate, some of it is coarse, and a lot of it is fine. So coarse particulate organic matter would be bits of wood and trees and stumps and that kind of stuff that comes in, and it would take time for that to break down. If you think of as it breaks down, you have other critters that begin to utilize it, or you have some critters that break that stuff down, and as it gets finer and finer, it can be acted on by more and more things, till once it gets really, really fine, then you have microbial breakdown. And that's, again, a very, very natural process. You also have dissolved organic matter, and those are going to be soluble organic compounds like humic acids, fulvic acids. Those are things that might come from plant roots, and great examples are the Black River systems down in the low country. You're not going to see those Black River systems in the Piedmont area. You know, Piedmont area, typically those streams are going to be red and with lots of particulate, actually soil particles, clay particles. Okay, so let's have a look. Actually, it's kind of interesting that the soluble organic matter is actually the largest pool of organic matter in streams. So that's something that you can kind of take home. So when Vano talks about streams and stream orders, some of the aspects he touches on is, you know, in terms of energy, in terms of, well, let's just go over it, because he talks about stream orders being the very low orders. I think orders 1 to 3. Then the medium orders would be about 3 to 7, and then the higher order streams would be about 8 and up. And so let's go have a look at a few of those common properties, or he talks about different aspects of it. First of all, when he talks about the headwaters in terms of energy from the sun, most of the energy from the sun is kind of blocked out because you've got these tiny streams and the headwaters are shaded, and that's the way they should be. They're cool. If you think about a mountain stream, that's usually not very warm. The moment you clear cut the area and expose that mountain stream, you're going to kind of mess up that habitat. There's very little photosynthesis in this part of the stream, so respiration, that's R greater than P, respiration is going to be greater than photosynthesis. This is not a problem usually in this kind of stream situation, because you've got very, very high gradients, so you have good re-aeration. And again, that's why you find trout in mountain streams. There might not be that much photosynthesis, but you're getting this mechanical re-aeration over there. Your organic matter is typically coarse, you know, sticks, leaves, twigs, that kind of stuff, and it provides resources for your base consumer community. So these are animals and fish and plants and things like that that are going to be able to make use of that coarse organic matter. When you go into the mid-order streams, he talks about your energy inputs change as the stream broadens. Now, basically what happens in this case, as the stream broadens, the tree canopy can't cover the whole thing, okay? So you have a lot of photosynthetic or more photosynthetic activity going on as the sun actually hits the stream. And so what you're finding over here, as your shading decreases, your contribution of coarse particulate organic matter reduces as well, because you've got less trees per unit volume, if you like, of water as well. As your sunlight increases, you've got this phytoplankton, not only phytoplankton, but rooted macrophytes as well, and that begins to contribute towards photosynthesis. And in that case, photosynthesis begins to exceed respiration. Excuse me. And then what also is going to happen is the amount of organic matter that you see, or the sizing of that organic matter that you're going to see, is going to decrease over time. And that's because the coarse particulate organic matter that fell into the river upstream somewhere is now going to get broken down, to the point that, okay, you've got the material's finer. It's either going to be mechanically broken down or broken down by organisms, some kind of organism. And once you get into the higher order stream, 7 or 8 and above, so once you get into the lowlands of South Carolina, you'll see the Cooper River, the Santee River, those big old rivers there. Your streams widen even more. But at that stage, you've got macrophytic vegetation, especially on the sides. But what's happening also is that you've got more sediment in the water. They're not, the rivers are not always as clear. And so your zone, your photic zone may decrease a little bit. So you're not going to have macrophytic vegetation like in some of the mid-order streams right in the middle of the stream. You're going to have macrophytic vegetation mainly on the side of that river. So in the largest ones, you're going to, the macrophytes are going to be limited to the largest ones. Your bottom substrate becomes smaller, as we talked about. You're going to get more and more fine particulate organic matter. And because of all of that, less sunlight per unit volume of water, you're going to find that your photosynthesis actually reduces. And as that happens, basically, you're going to find that respiration increases as photosynthesis drops. You've got a lot of productivity, a lot of nutrients down in those places. So you can actually see in that diagram stream order, and then you're also having a look at what happens to your photosynthesis to respiration ratio. When we're talking about the river continuum concept and the types of macroinvertebrate assemblages you'll find, and that's this particular slide that you have. In the upper reaches of your river, where you have faster stream velocities, more coarse particulate organic matter, and that kind of thing. Basically, some of your predominant macroinvertebrate taxa are going to be things like shredders, because there's plenty of coarse particulate organic matter for them to get hold of. So there's a lot of shredders, and then there are going to be some collectors. The collectors are the guys, you know, like blackfly or mayfly, things like that, that are actually going to collect some of that material that's been shredded. The grazers, you'll see there might be a few of them, but there are not that many grazers, just because you don't have that much in terms of either algae that's sitting on the rocks, or algae that's actually floating in the water, so phytoplankton type thing. So your grazers are going to be pretty low, and then what you'll find throughout this thing is you've got a certain amount of predators. The predators might change over the continuum of the river, but your predators then are going to be fairly constant. They might just vary in terms of the kind of prey they eat. So in the top reaches over here, your big macroinvertebrates, or the highest proportion of your macroinvertebrate biomass, if you like, is going to be found in the shredders and then also the collectors. Now, when you come into the middle part of the rivers, or into the middle types of rivers, so stream order is 4 to 8. What you're going to find is that the proportion of grazers actually goes up. And as the proportion of grazers goes up, the proportion of shredders goes down, because there's simply not that much coarse particulate organic matter to collect. You've got collectors over here, and you'll see then your predators stay the same. Why do the grazers, the number of grazers go up? Obviously because this is where the photosynthesis increases. In these mid-order streams, trees are far away from the side. You've got lots of sunlight. Sunlight penetrates fairly deeply. And then finally in the lower reaches, basically what happens, most of the energy in that river now doesn't come just from the sunlight. It comes from material that has washed down from the middle reaches, and often in very, very fine particulate organic matter. So down here you're going to see a bunch of collectors, and you can see some of the copepods, mussels, bloodworms, things like that. But you're also going to find, again, different types of predators in this situation. So that's kind of some of what river continuum concept talks about. What you'll see, and last year I had the guys do an exercise, which we're probably not going to do this year, on some objections to the river continuum concept. I think it's safe to say, for instance, that if you put a dam into the river, or you know, if you dam the river up, that continuum concept kind of goes by the wayside. All you have to do is go to the Saluda upstream of Lake Murray versus the Saluda downstream of Lake Murray, and you'll find two very, very different rivers. Big thing is that all the particulate matter has actually been caught up in Lake Murray. Downstream of Lake Murray, you've got this beautiful, what looks like almost like a mountain stream, very, very clear water, for example, and it's a lot colder. So river continuum concept does break down. For instance, you might have lower order streams coming into higher order streams, messing that up. So just be aware that that Van Noot's continuum concept has flaws, but it's a nice way to look at things like energy, respiration, organic matter, basically energy flows in rivers. Some of the things that you probably see in rivers that are fairly obvious. First of all, you know, you're not going to find trout at the dam wall of the Lake Watery Dam. You know, down there you're going to find those big old catfish that the guys fish, and they pull them out, I don't know, 100 pounds, whatever. But that catfish, that's its best place to hang out. It likes low currents. It doesn't like hanging out in places where there's high current. Trout is just not going to survive there. Trout wants to be in water that's got high current. So body shape does actually have some sort of effect. You can see about diatoms and attached and rooted macrophytes. Attached algae are going to possibly be in rivers where you've got slightly quicker flow, whereas rooted macrophytes will tend to be where your river flow is a little bit lower. I thought this last diagram was kind of interesting from Van Noot, basically, and the first thing that you see over here is this picture over here is, this is stream order, and this is delta T over during the day. And so what actually you're finding is that in the mid-order streams, delta T increases, is the highest, and delta T is the lowest in your high and your low order streams. And why is it? Let's take a moment to think about it. Well, in your low order streams over here, remember you've got these streams that are shaded by trees. So during the day, the amount of sunlight that gets through to that stream is going to be fairly low. Whereas over here in the middle, you're going to have this big old river, okay? You're going to have the trees on this side and this side, but lots and lots of sunshine shining in. So you have an increase over here of temperature during the day. So that delta T over the dial is going to be much greater. And then down here, what you're going to find is you're going to have this big old river, lots and lots of sediment, perhaps depth, and the amount of sunlight relative to the volume of water that's going to be flown is going to lower that temperature gradient. Okay, so this is not temperature, it's delta T during the day. Okay, so that's something that's worth thinking about and interesting now. When you're talking about, let me have a look, is it P to R ratio? You're looking at, let me put that down here, photosynthesis to respiration, kind of does this, drops a little bit over here. So it peaks again sort of in your midstreams and begins to drop. There's not much going on here. And what they're also talking about that is that the most biotic diversity you're going to find is over here. And one of the reasons is because they're different conditions. So you're going to find critters that are going to be more adapted to different circumstances. So that's really all I wanted to talk about. Streams and stream orders and stream ecology. What we'll be doing is taking some instruments out into a stream, a local stream somewhere over here, and we'll do a couple of measurements and see how that looks in the field. I'll also give you a visual, a way to visually and qualitatively and semi-quantitatively assess the condition of a stream. So thanks, and look forward to seeing you next week.